Hi, I'm Dewayne Jackson, and I am Father.
I am Father.
Back against the wall, head still high, push through it all. Father am I, lead by example, but still I gotta follow. Value your seeds, let's promise them tomorrow. Forever I stand, it's never to be a bother. Forever I'm man, forever I'm father. Forever I stand, it's never to be a bother. Forever I'm man, forever I'm father.
My name is Alan Irvin, and this is I Am Father. Hello, welcome to another episode of I Am Father. This is your boy Alan Irvin, and we're here to talk about fatherhood. Listen, one thing that I realize is, fatherhood means something different, really. It's just a whole thought process of what people think about fatherhood. And it goes across, I think it's a little different across racial groups. I think it's difference between eras. But one thing about it, fatherhood is fatherhood. And what we want to do is we want to establish a type of blueprint on just the fundamentals, just the basics, just the mental paradigm of what fatherhood is all about. And we're doing that through testimony. So what we're talking about today is fatherhood paradigm. What kind of mindset do you need to even be a father? For the fathers that's coming up, the existing fathers, one thing that we're going to identify is some way is pretty consistent across the board. It's just some differences. And just because you put the sperm there doesn't give you everything you need to be a father. We go through things all the time. Issues come up where we have to attack it in a way. It could be uncharted territory, something that you've never walked before. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What type of mindset you got to have to be a father. And I'm sitting here with my brother Dewayne Jackson, a brother from another mother, a brother that I love and been knowing for quite some time now. How you doing, Dewayne?
Oh man, good to be here with you. Good to be here with you.
Man, it's good for you to be here. I'm glad you had an opportunity to come down and have this interview with me, because I know it's going to be some jewels you drop today. And not only that, you've always been the guy that was like my voice of reasoning, you know what I mean? Because I have a way of looking at things at times, and a lot of times you would come in and you be that voice of reasoning for me, and I really appreciate you for that. But tell the audience about you. I know about you. Tell the audience about you. How many kids do you have? If you've been married, how long you've been married, the whole gamut. What makes you a father?
Well, thank you. So first of all, glad to be here.
Okay.
With truly my brother.
Yep.
Surely my brother.
Mm-hmm.
That's from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's just where we come from. But one of the reasons why I'm glad to be on here, because it actually is a great platform. It's a platform not just for being a father, but for being a man. So for me, my story is different than most. For example, I didn't grow up with a father. So my natural father, I've never met. I've never known. Never, ever. So
Okay.
I don't even, the only thing I know is his name. And then I grew up in a neighborhood with no men.
Really?
Grown up with all women figures, all single mothers.
Mm.
There was one man in the whole neighborhood, and he was a drug dealer.
You're saying neighborhood, or you're not talking about household?
I grew up in Denver, so I didn't have a father.
Uh-huh.
And in the neighborhood where all my friends were, none of my friends had fathers.
Oh, interesting.
Not one of them. I had one friend that had a father.
Okay.
Out of 10, 12 guys.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
So none of us have what you would consider to be a male role model, not only not in the house, but not even in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to figure out how to be a man, which is step number one to becoming a father, is you gotta become a man first.
You were saying that in your whole neighborhood was perhaps one father, most of them, for the majority, was women, and
My whole life.
so, okay, How many kids you have?
3. Got 3 boys.
Oh, you got 3 boys. What are their ages?
One is 18, one is 22, and one is 35.
35? I didn't know it's that old. You 35?
Hey man, them years go by, man. You take a snapshot of a person and they keep moving.
Yeah, my man. Okay, so we're talking about the mindset of fatherhood. But before I get there, let me ask you, because you have a very unique situation, and a lot of it I'm learning for the first time right now. So when I say fatherhood, what does that mean to you?
The word fatherhood, to me, the word that comes to mind is legacy. I think the very first thing you have to care about your legacy as a man. Mm-hmm. And that's what fatherhood represents, because you can have a boy or a girl. It doesn't matter what the sex of the child is. Your legacy is what you birth, what you create, is what you leave behind. And so the most important thing to you should be, what did you leave behind and what kind of condition did you leave it in?
True. I definitely agree with that. Most definitely. With you not knowing your father, how did you learn fatherhood though, without having your father in your life? How did you learn fatherhood?
Well, I'll say this, and I think for men, two things are important. The first thing is, there's no excuse not to be a good father. It's inexcusable, because there's 2 ways to learn everything. Mm-hmm. You can learn the easy way or the hard way. Mm-hmm. The easy way would have been to have a father and somebody show you everything. But you can learn the hard way too, and the hard way is not having a father. So just because you don't have a father don't mean you don't have the inability to learn. Mm-hmm. You gotta learn, you can learn either way. And so I learned from not having a father. If I could make a short plug, I really want to give a lot of honor and credit to Bill Cosby, to be honest with you. Okay. The Cosby Show came along at a time that was influential in my life, where I got to see a black man be a father to black kids. And they didn't raise the kids with yelling and screaming and whipping and the things that our culture teaches us this is the way to rear our kids. Mm-hmm. He used a voice of reason, and that philosophy got instilled in me. Mm-hmm. So, I talk to my kids. I've always talked to my kids. I've always talked to, in the voice that I'm talking to you right now, whether I'm chastising or praising. That was the most impactful experience I ever had in my life. And, when you were tuning into that show every week, you never knew how it was going to affect you. But I knew that one of the things that the TV shows showed you is that you can get results by just speaking truth in a kid. You don't have to be the kid to get truth in a kid. If you speak truth, if you show love, you show support, and you impart wisdom, the kid will come out the way the kid's supposed to come out.
Man, that's interesting. That's interesting, because a lot of people would say the media is bad for, being used to raise your kids, but I can see how that would be very valid in your point of view. I mean, the Cosby Show was a good show, and it did illustrate a lot of positive as it pertains to a black family.
Mm-hmm. And it took, if you were in a bad situation, which I would say I wasn't raised in the best situation, it took you out of your situation for that 30 minutes it was on TV. Mm-hmm. It took you out of your pain or what you weren't getting. You got to see that you could get something else. And then, guess what? The thing that I would impart on any man when you're trying to become a father is the one attribute you can teach your kids to be a great decision maker. Because that's what it comes down to. That at the end of the day, life is about decisions. Mm-hmm. Good, bad, or indifferent. You got to be a good decision maker. And what we don't teach and what we don't train our kids how important decision making is. Mm-hmm. And that is really the foundation in understanding that with life, there's consequence. That's biblical. Mm-hmm. There's been consequence since God put Adam on this earth. There was a consequence for everything that you do. Mm-hmm. And that has never changed. And we want to punish versus teach. And you can give consequence in form of a punishment, but you still have to make sure that the lessons taught learned along the way.
Yeah, I definitely can see that, and I actually can see that in you. And as long as I've been knowing you, see if I can put a number to that.
Right. You don't have to. We don't want to scare people away. These old fools of this doggone
Yeah,
stuff.
but you're absolutely right, and I can actually see that in the way that I've been around watching you raise your kids. So yeah, life is choice driven, and I would say that's a great attribute of a father. What other attributes would you say really describe fatherhood, or what a father needs to be? Because one thing that we're doing is we're speaking to people that's watching this show, are fathers or new fathers, old fathers, people that want to be a father, males that want to be a father. What attributes, and how would you describe, what qualities do they need to really be thinking about and having and instilling?
I think if you just refer to the Bible and defining just what love is, and you look in 1 Corinthians, it talks about love is patient and love is kind. They could take the word love out and substitute for fatherhood. Fatherhood is patient. Fatherhood is kind. Fatherhood is not being judgmental. Fatherhood is being forgiving. I mean, one of the things, sometimes when we've graduated and we become fathers, sometimes we forget where we are or where we've come from. So then when our kids go through those same pitfalls that we had, that we failed at, we act like we didn't fail, and we're ready to torture our kids, when guess what? If you rewind the tape 20 years prior, we were making those same mistakes.
Yep.
And guess what? We were either beaten or punished or something, but we got to understand there's a different way to help somebody get to the other side. And I think part of the attributes from being a father is you got to want your kid to get to the other side of whatever obstacle he's living through. It is because life is a moving target. But, time stops for no one. So you can't sit there and take a moment in time and let that be your point of judgment and say, okay, this is what you are because this happened. Life moves. If somebody were to judge me based on what I look like at 16 years old, you wouldn't think I was going to be anything. You would have had no clue if you'd have judged me based on not having guidance, not having direction, and not having somebody to help me make good life decisions. So fatherhood is something that you grow into. And that's why one of the things I can tell young men, don't become a father too soon. You have to grow, learn how to be a young man, learn how to be a man, and then you can be a father. But you can't be a father before you're a man. So when you got kids having to become fathers, kids that don't want to become fathers, guess what they do? They don't become fathers. So guess what? Now they're not taking care of their responsibilities. Women are bringing kids up by themselves because those kids are having kids and they're not fathers. Fatherhood is a conscious decision, first of all. You have to make it, once a child is brought into this earth, you have to make a conscious decision about being a father. And you got to want fatherhood. And that doesn't necessarily mean you got to want the woman. Now, I'm a person that would promote marriage or anything else, but you got to still want to be a father, to be a father. And if you don't want to be a father, you got to understand you're making a statement to your own legacy. And when you start judging that and looking at your legacy and really taking a good hard look about, we're on this earth for a limited amount of time, right? So when we're gone, what do I want people to say about me? And the first people they're going to talk about me is my family.
That dash, that fatherhood dash on the tombstone. Yeah.
Come on, man. That's where this thing starts and ends. It's there. And if you don't think about your legacy, then you won't care about your legacy. So I would advise any man to, first of all, think about your legacy. What do you want your legacy to look like? How do you want your kids to be remembered? To remember you? What kind of impact do you want to have made in their life? And not just their life. You gotta understand, you're a man walking on this earth. You impact multiple people, whether you want to or not. It's like everybody knows you as Gabe's dad, but guess what? When they look at you as Gabe's dad or Ethan's dad, they have judgment on you. These kids look at you as, hey, he's got a good dad. Or if your kids spoke down on you, they'd be like, I don't, we don't want to be around Mr. Irvin. Okay, Mr. Irvin's coming home, we're leaving because of the impact you've had on your own kid. Mm-hmm. Then kids don't want to spend time with your kids when you're around, or kids have a different impact because you haven't been around as a father. So people don't understand the layers of impacts that fatherhood truly makes on a young man and on a kid.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I mean, I was asking this earlier, but hearing you, and I asked you a question earlier, how did you learn fatherhood? You said the Cosby Show, but based on what I hear, you had to learn it more than the Cosby Show. I mean, what else you did, what other efforts you made to learn about fatherhood, to be able to bring these things from within like you're doing now? Because, I mean, that's good stuff, man. Those good stuff. Anything else you did to really learn fatherhood?
You
gonna credit it all to Bill Cosby?
I'm going to give him way more credit than other people may not give him credit for, because if all you know, if all you know is all you know, this is all you know. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, I had, it's kind of funny because, like I said, I didn't have father. By the time I got to high school, I had great gym teachers and coaches, and they instilled in me at least believing in somebody. And I'm going to tell you, as a father, I don't care what your child's strengths are, their weaknesses are, it doesn't matter. You starts with believing in the kid, male or female. If you believe in your kids, you are the origin of the seed of their direction. If you come into, and just think about people that become famous and they get on the stage and the first thing said, for all the people that y'all told me I wasn't gonna be shit. Right. You know what I mean? And that comes from a mother, that comes from a father, that comes from an adult that poured that bad seed in the kid. It starts there. So, I'm a firm believer that to be a great father, you have to be a great person. And to be a great person, you gotta believe in people. The earth is made of people. We're not loners, we're not autonomous. We're put on this earth to reproduce, we're put on this earth to interact. And the way we choose to interact says a lot about us, and says a lot about what we will breed in our long-term life. So it is going to be extremely important that when we speak, and our voice is so important. Our voice is everything. So when you speak and it's got too much bravado, and the only way you know how to communicate is through cussing or screaming or shouting, everybody doesn't learn that way. So you gotta love your kids individually. Like, I will say this, I got 3 kids, and to be honest with you, I love them differently. I love them equally, but I love them differently.
Does that mean you raise them different?
They all have different roads to success. So you got to understand what, I believe in a reward system. I like rewarding because I think rewarding, inspiring is what will drive them for better results. But someone's reward may be money, where my other one may be free time in a video game, or my other one may be, hey, let me have this material thing. So I think the reward system is an excellent system, and I've never been big on taking away, because if I gave you something in the first place, I gave it to you because I wanted you to have it. So I've never been the father that's ever taken away. That's not a methodology I believe in, because I know subliminally, and we don't think about this, I know subliminally how it scarred me as a kid when things were taken away or I couldn't have. It didn't make me a better kid. And that's one thing people assume, because I took this away from you, that it made me act right. That ain't what made me act right. Wanting to get away is what made me act right. All I wanted to do was get out of situations that I didn't want to be in. It had nothing to do with what you gave me or what you took away. So my system wasn't the same system that I give my kids. I give my kids a system of love that's unconditional, that's without judgment. You make a mistake, guess what? Why am I going to jump up and down screaming? If I told them all the mistakes I made, if I told people, come on, man. What people don't know, what we done had to do, what we done had to go through, man, the things that we gonna take to our own grave that don't nobody know.
Yeah, everybody got to live their own life, man. And I tell folks that all the time. I mean, and I think you hit it on the head in the beginning. Life is choice driven. I mean, where we are today is from the sum total of the choices we've made in our life. And we have to make those choices. I remember when Gabe went off to college, before he went off to college, I started letting him make his own decisions. I mean, because I know when he go, I'm not gonna be there.
Right.
So I need to see what kind of decisions he's gonna be making, and I really gave him free will. You know, you gonna still respect my house. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna still exercise a level of respect where you need to exercise that. But and he made some bonehead moves. And one thing I told him, I was like, look, man, we gonna do some bonehead stuff every now and then. You know, you're gonna have to learn from it. So yeah, life is definitely choice driven.
The other attribute I have to really kind of give a lot of credit to is my friends. My friends all grew up to be great men. Mm-hmm. And we did a lot of collaborating during their years. We all had kids around the same time and the same age. So the good part about it is that we had each other to bounce our experiences off of. So, hey, this is what's going on with my kids. This is what's going on with their kids. What did you do about this situation? So that's the X factor in my life, is that my kids were raised by more men than just me, and they'll never know it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, based on how they influence you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I've had great friends. And I think to be a father, you need to surround yourself by great men, and I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, and I can definitely see that. I mean, the village really played a huge role in you becoming a father. You know, and it's not that, it sounds to me that it's not that they were father figures in your life to the point of somebody who you looked up to in that way. Like, for example, my uncle was a father figure to me, but he was old enough that I can honestly say he was a father figure. But you got father figures as more lateral, it sounds like, on your level. You know, your peers were father figures who you guys, you held in high regard, and they held you in high regard. So I can definitely see that, man. You coming from a background where, you know, your father wasn't there, but you surrounded yourself with peers and these peers were great fathers.
And they didn't have fathers either. We all had, that was our common thread. None of them had fathers.
Wow.
Of all my good friends, one of them had a father, and his father died probably in his early 20s, and while he was in his early 20s. So even through our childbearing years, none of us had grandfathers that our kids could even look up to. So, you know, and none of us had fathers, so we all kind of depended upon each other.
Man, wow. Well, I mean, those conversations had to be very deep and intimate because, I mean, just speaking for myself, it's very hard for me to get too intimate and deep in like a brother's love with another male.
But we've had that. That's been our relationship. Think about it.
That's been our relationship, yeah. But that's been our relationship. That wasn't me and your relationship and other males that's been in my life, because that hadn't been the case. But that was our relationship, and that's one thing I think I held on to in our relationship is that. I mean, I can come to you and I can have a serious conversation. And a lot of times, you probably know me so well that you know the answer before I even. And a lot of times I don't even think you're listening to me because you already know what's going on.
You're absolutely comical. He's absolutely right about this. This dude, I mean, when I say he's comical, he's absolutely comical. But and I'm giving you to your credit though, when the foundation that you've laid is so good, the labor takes a little less. It's not nowhere near as hard. Mm-hmm. I mean, just think about the things as a father that you haven't experienced. Mm. You know, you haven't had to bury a child. You haven't had to go get a child out of prison. You haven't had to break your child out of a gang fight. You haven't had to worry about your child carrying a concealed weapon. You haven't had to worry about your child having to steal. You haven't dealt with a child that's disrespectful to his mother. You haven't had a child be disrespectful to you. But that says so much about you that, yeah, you don't want to. Fatherhood is underrated, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. It's like we are good with raising up women, and women do a lot. But I will tell you this: in the day and time that we live in, fathers are hidden gems, brother. Mm-hmm. They're hidden gems and they're dying breeds because men don't embrace fatherhood the way it should be embraced. Mm-hmm. Going back to your point, part of what makes a good father is you got to embrace the challenge.
Yep. Embrace the challenge also, but also having men around that can sharpen your iron. You know, I think about it. I mean, what if I had 15 Dewaynes? You know, and it sounds like that's what you had because, you know, your father wasn't in your life, and then, wow, your other Dewaynes didn't have fathers in their life, man. So I can imagine those relationships ran deep.
Well, that's why Cosby needs so much credit.
Yeah.
It's crazy that this is a man that's been judged by all the wrong things when you're looking at the measure of the man. The other attributes of things he's experienced in life, I can't judge on that because I don't know that man, I don't know his experiences, and he'll have to pay consequences for any wrongdoing. But for the impact he's had on my life, come on, man, I can't thank him enough. And I've never met the man.
Oh, you've never met him?
Never met him. I tell you what, so I just realized last week when I knew we were going to start having this conversation, because I never had a bucket list. And if I had one thing on the bucket list right now in my life, it would be
oh man, I can see that very clearly. So we're talking about changing the fatherhood paradigm. How important would you say mental health is to fatherhood? How does mental health play a role in fatherhood, negative and positive these days?
Well, so first of all, to answer your question, I first have to deal with mental health in general. And I think, even though I think mental health is real, if you took the word mental health and backed it up 30 years, 40 years ago, hell, all of us would go to hell in a handbasket of how crazy we were, how crazy our parents were, and how they reared us and treated us. I don't know what you'd call some of the things we experienced and how we dealt with some of the traumatic experiences we all had not talked about. And we didn't blame it on mental health. So to me, when I come full circle in 2022, we cannot let mental health be an excuse for not doing the right things. You just can't. Guess what? We're going to have good days, bad days, whether we're strong mentally or not strong mentally. Guess what? We still got a job to do, whether we're feeling into it, whether we got jobs, whether we're employed, whether our bills are paid, whether our woman's acting right. None of our responsibilities go away. And it's the thing that we have to also teach our kids, that regardless, man, of what you're going through, your responsibilities don't go away. And that's the difference of where the ball gets dropped from a fatherhood standpoint, is that when men are looking to relieve themselves of some different types of pressures, your kids can't be the options of something that's going to make your life simpler by not being around. You know what I'm saying? Because the funny part about it, 90% of men, and this is a true statistic, and I think the stat is like 92%. 92% of men that leave a woman that has their kids goes to another woman that has kids, and they end up having to be fathers for somebody else's kid. Nobody ever thinks about that.
Say that again.
Come on, 91% of men that leave their families for another woman have to be fathers to someone else's kids.
Yeah, so let's talk about the qualities of a father, the qualities that new fathers need to fine tune, when they first become a father. Now, I've heard you hit on a lot of them. One you just hit on was responsibility. Definitely have to be responsible. You hit on earlier being a good decision maker. And we just talked about mental health, and I'm gonna let you finish up on that. But you were setting that up because when you was talking about responsibility, you have to be responsible no matter what stage you're at. When we're talking about mental health, they have to know that. You know what I mean? I think fathers have to know that it's time to be responsible. And a lot of times that's not something that's instilled.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think that mental health is a good excuse to not be a good father?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I understand that. But what I will tell you is, me, I always believe mental health was, I associated mental health with a straitjacket.
Right, exactly, and it's so much not that. That's
right.
The thing. So if you rewind the tape 30 years ago, 40 years ago, there's been so many days that from a mental health. If they took a mental health on you on a particular day, they may put a straitjacket on you if they picked the wrong day to judge you.
Possibly.
Right. My point is this. Here's the thing where it comes down to, and I'd almost take mental health out of the equation, because mental health is an excuse. Because still, at the end of the day, if you're a father and you got a child on this earth, all you can do is be the best person you can be. So you don't get a break because you got a handicap or because you're not mentally capable or you don't have a job. So guess what? Mental health can't play a factor in it. You got to be the best father you can be, and that's all you can be, is the best father you can be. But what I will say is this: the biggest attribute to help being a great father is you got to choose to enjoy the journey. If you don't choose to enjoy the journey and you let the journey be a mental struggle for you, then it's hard to be a good father, because it's not something you want to be. Enjoy the journey. I'll never forget, my first son was born when I was in college. I wasn't ready to be a father and didn't want to be a father at that point in time, because I was into myself at 22 years old. That's where I was at 22 years old. Well, I'll tell you, the day he was born, there was a paradigm shift. I could no longer be my own priority. He had to become their priority. And then what I chose to do is I chose to make that journey fun for myself. I chose to enjoy the journey with him. And once I enjoyed the journey with him, then it was fun teaching him. Then it was cool when he made mistakes, because then you could be the guy to help him get to the other side of it. Because I'm telling you what, my walk is about getting people to the other side of their journey. I'm just a pass-through point.
So do you think all fathers have that type of mental stability to just be that stable and make that type of decision?
No, fatherhood's tough. You gotta be strong, but you can't give up. You can't have a defeatist mentality about it. If you decide that you're going to let life outweigh your responsibilities, then guess what? Life wins.
I think you hit it on the head as well. Giving up. Some people give up easily, and you cannot give up. You really have to fight. Even when you have a mom, well, not a mom, but your kid's mom is not as stable.
So you just said 10,000 words and don't even realize it, because truthfully, fathers, a direct correlation comes with the woman that you're with, or the woman that's either the woman you're with or the mother of your child, and then neither of the two have anything to do with the kind of father you should be. And I think that's tough for fathers to come to work through, because it's the woman's fault. When she's not letting you do this, let me tell you something. Any man that wants to be a good father, there's not a single woman on this earth that's not going to allow the man to be a good father. That doesn't mean she's going to give you custody. That don't mean you're going to pay child support. But guess what? There's still confines. There's nobody that's ever going to stop you from being a good father, because there's too many different ways to be a good father. If you're in an unfortunate situation, let's say you don't have custody of your kids, nobody's stopping you from communicating with your kids, especially in the time that we have now. It ain't just the one house that's in the phone. Everybody got a cell phone. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got the internet. There's social media. There's 50,000 ways to communicate with your kids. But I think the other part of fatherhood is availability. And I think that's the thing, that is the missing attribute to fathers that fall short in that category, is that you have to, you can't pick and choose what your availability is going to be as a father.
You got to be present, and that requires knowing when to be present, how to be present. But what if your kid's mom is not that mentally stable and talking negative toward you and really trying to fight against you of seeing the kid? I mean, how would you approach that?
Well, I would say first,
because that is out there, right?
So I would say this though, my relationship, I'm not trying to be her father. And I think a lot of times when that conflict comes in, the husband's trying to sell his ability to be a father, and that's the wrong person to sell fatherhood to. You sell fatherhood to your kids. When I'm pouring the right thing into the kid, guess what the kid's gonna tell mom? I want to see my dad. I want to spend time with my dad. I ain't got to twist her arm, because the kid's beating her across the head with it.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of times the reason you got father conferences and things of that nature is for the fathers that's not so easy for. I mean, one thing about fatherhood, and I say this a lot, is you got to manage the entire process. Meaning, you got to manage the process of the mom, the kids. You got to be able to see that thing before it happened, because ultimately, I believe the responsibility is yours. And even if you're not in the house with the kids, or you and the mom are not in the same house, I actually believe you still responsible.
Okay.
To a degree, like for example, if the kid's mom, if the kids saw me treat their mom bad, they're gonna look at me in some kind of way, right?
Right.
And ultimately that really teaches them something good or bad on how to treat a woman, even to the point of if their mom is down in some kind of way or not doing good in some kind of way, and they know that I have the ability to help in some kind of way and I don't, I ultimately think that's going to teach them too.
Sure. Well, I think you touched on two good points. First of all, and I'll take point 2 versus 1, is that, first of all, being a father is a full-time job.
With overtime.
With overtime. So the problem is, most men show up in a moment to try to then become Mr. Fix-It and be the father in the moment. Mm-hmm. And that's why it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the kid, it doesn't work for the mom.
Say that again now? Be Mr. Fix-It in the moment?
In the moment they show up, okay, guess what, it's Tuesday, it's my day, I gotta go. So that what happened Monday, Sunday, Saturday, did you check Friday to see if the kid needs something, so by the time Tuesday got there. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that we miss as men, is that you gotta fatherhood every day.
Mm. Oh yeah.
Whether you're with the kid or without the kid.
Lifetime job.
You got a fatherhood every day. That's piece number 1. Mm-hmm. Piece number 2 is, guess what? She can't play a role in what kind of father you're gonna be. Good, bad, or different. We can, even if it's tough, even if it's a volatile situation, guess what? She can't. You gotta take fatherhood. You gotta let it be the priority to where she don't get in the way. Because guess what? At the end of the day, if she sees that you're gonna be good by the kid, she's not gonna get in the way. A lot of times mothers feel like they have to intervene because fathers are only be a part of the father's part-time. And you won't show up when you want to show up, when it's convenient for you, where she's been a full-time mother and had to deal with the ups and downs, and then you can't. Well, you wonder why she didn't want you to come by and pick him up on Tuesday. Well, because guess what? On Saturday when the kid was acting out, you wouldn't know where to be found. And she's bearing that weight, and she's carrying that with her. You know what I mean? And so we also, when you have being a father with a woman that you're married to, versus being a father to a kid that you and the mom are not together, those are two different dynamics too. Yeah, I can't be an expert on that show because in my scenario, I've been with my mother's kid, but even with my youngest son, when I separated from his mother, guess what? I didn't let that interfere. Matter of fact, I did the same thing you did. I went and got custody of my kid.
Okay.
So my oldest son, I raised him every day till he was 10 years old. And then when I moved, he went back to his mom, but it was going to be my responsibility to put the foundation in it.
And that's good stuff, man. And women, a lot of times, what I found is women don't expect or don't think that a man can make certain decisions or do things without them. Like men can actually handle business. I know it was an issue that happened with your son here recently, where I got a phone call 4 o'clock in the morning.
Absolutely.
Right? And we was able to take care of that thing in 2 hours. And it was like, well, how did y'all do that? And we communicated.
And it was two fathers doing it.
And it was two fathers doing
With
it.
no yelling, no screaming,
right?
No cussing at the kids, no crying and being hostile amongst each other, no judging the kid when we picked the kid up. It was a life experience, and we allowed it to be a life experience.
You want to talk about that?
Well, we're talking about it because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the event was. What matters is how we chose to handle it.
Right. And it was very impressive to some, but to me, it was what needed to be done, and it was very simple.
It was two fathers taking care of business in the moment, but it was easier for us because you and I both embraced fatherhood. I had to think about it. And this says a lot about you. Guess what? I'm 1,200 miles away, and I got to call you at 3 a.m. You know what I'm saying? And the sad part and the funny part about it is this: I called you first, but guess what? I had a list of 5 other people because I make sure everybody that knows me understands how important fatherhood is to me. So they're not going to leave my kid hanging no different than how I would handle my kid. So you handled my kid the way you know I would handle my kid.
Absolutely, that is true.
You didn't even think about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's why I knew I could call you. So that whole thing about that groundwork that we laid early on is so important because now when we need it 5 years later, 8 years later, 10 years later, the foundation between you and I, because the exact same way it happened for me would be the exact same way it would happen if the shoe was on their foot.
Absolutely. Play by play. All right. Look, man, we can go on and on and on. We could go on and on, man. But one thing I do wanna ask you if you have any tips, man, for new fathers out there, or even fathers that's thinking about, planning fatherhood in some kind of way. What is it that you would give them? Because I think your situation and your perception on how you even look at it is just very unique.
Well, thank you. Well, enjoy the journey with the kid. That's it. Enjoy the journey with the kid. Make it y'all's journey. And make it your journey individually. I had 3 boys, and the journey's been different for all 3 of them, and I've enjoyed all 3 journeys.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for coming out, Dewayne Jackson.
Man. Thanks for having me.
Much love, man.
Much love.
I love you.
All right.
Hold 1 second. Yeah, you keep calling me. I'm doing the interviews. Let's Coach Jackson.
What's good, Coach?
What's good? What's good?
What's up?
Now, actually, can I go eat dinner at Jalen's house?
Jalen.
Yeah. They're having dinner at his house.
Just wait till I get there.
Dang, wait, you're far.
Yeah.
Isaiah said he would take me.
Who?
Isaiah's taking me.
No, it's school night, man. You need to stay there.
Dad, you're eating dinner.
Go in the refrigerator, man.
I'm hungry.
Look in the refrigerator. We have 2 of them.
Dad. I can't go eat a track dinner after track practice, Dad.
What you mean a track dinner?
It's because his mom is cooking for all of the track guys.
Well, you ain't say
You
all
should have said
that.
that first.
Oh, my fault. But his mom is cooking for all the track guys that are running in Wesley. So, like, I was invited.
What? Didn't your mom pick you up?
Huh?
Did your mom pick you up?
From track practice?
Yeah.
No, Vic took me home.
Um,
But yeah,
all right, man.
alright.
Don't you love decision making? Don't you love it?
You know, you gotta keep that part in.
Right. I would agree.
Or you just gotta do a clip.
I totally agree with you. Impromptu fatherhood decision making, right there at its finest.
Yeah.
And then he'll give you all the information.
Right.
Hey man, you want me to make a decision?
And that's something else to think about too. But we gonna ride with it.